Is this thing on? So I'm starting sort of a new theme in my video series. Um, I'm planning to sort of do around 3 to 4 books in each theme, um, focusing on sort of both how humans organize collectively and how human eyes behave individually. And so sometimes it'll be more sort of collectivization of humanity, others will be more focused on individual behaviors, individual processes. Um, this one will be a bit of both, which is aggression. Aggression, sort of, you typically need someone to aggress against, so there's always going to be a collective element in it. And also, it's going to sort of dive more into the political. Um, so, the first book of sort of aggression and violence is going to be Machiavelli's The Prince. And one thing I found about this book, sort of, it was written in the 16th century, which, if you know your history, sort of the idea of nation states didn't come about till the 17th century. And what sort of was the concept of nation states was a collection of states within a particular region with shared languages and shared values, shared cultures, and the sort of economic circumstance was feudalism, was sort of the main practice of the time for humanity. And sort of Machiavelli's book gets sort of the criticism is sort of around its more commonly quoted piece, which is sort of it's better to be feared than loved, and it's sort of associating sort of antisocial behavior for those who seek power. But the thing is that after reading the book, I found a lot more pro-social sort of tips, particularly for its time period, than I did find antisocial in terms of sort of aggressing against others. It definitely does talk about aggression. It does talk about violence. It does talk about um, means of securing a state, means of gaining power, and I think that's sort of where it gets its cynical nature or accusations of cynicism from it. It's talking explicitly about power and how power works. And um, I think people often want to pretend that how power works can be shaped by norms. How power works can be influenced by norms, and to a degree it can be, but uh, it's always still going to be power itself, and norms are useful tools in understanding how power works and can do negative things and positive things, but it's not necessarily fully shaped by norms. There's other influences within power. And so in the Substack companion piece that I'll be doing, I'm going to talk about how pro-social the book was, especially for feudalistic times. And uh, that means it may not actually fit into the whole aggression theme, but I'll find ways to make it fit into the aggression theme. And then um, the ones I want to talk about here are actually sort of thoughts and proposals that eventually influences the direction of history, that it influences the direction of the development of the state and the development of how humans progress into different cultures that are more pro-social. And I think that what Machiavelli was getting at with his book towards people of power, towards people seeking power, that's what the book is about. So the first quote relates to how states are formed, how people come to power. He who becomes prince by help of the nobility has greater difficulty in maintaining his power than he who is raised by the populace, for he is surrounded by those who think themselves his equals, and is thus unable to direct or command as he pleases. But one who is raised to leadership by popular favor finds himself alone, and has no one or very few who are not ready to obey him. So what Machiavelli is talking about here is it's actually better to gain power through popular demand than it is to form a coalition of powerful people. Because when you're forming a coalition of powerful people, those people are considered your equals. They're the ones who are providing you the resources to get the power that you want. Whereas popular demand, that means to the people who are in that mass movement, you are necessarily above them. You are necessarily in a higher status than they are, because they are putting their emotional direction into yours, where they're not necessarily asking for a reciprocal relationship. And so it's saying democracy is preferred, because you got a mass of people saying you want this person in power, and thus it's legitimizing, and it's also meaning that you have less people who are going to try and go after your own power. Next relates to religion, which might be a little bit controversial in terms of how norms work, but he's talking about churches. They are acquired either by the ability or by fortune, but are maintained without either, for they are sustained by the ancient religious customs, which are so powerful. So he's talking that churches are very rarely maintained exclusively through finances and exclusively through sort of communication skills. It's religions that stick around for centuries are done so because their normative framework is subscribed to and is able to be passed down through generations, through humans wanting that tradition for their family and the family adopting the traditions. If the family stops at a generation, then eventually it'll phase out. And so religions, they exist as a result of generations continuing the tradition. And so no amount of money, no amount of linguistic skill will continue that generation forward. It's just the tradition itself. Can it survive multiple generations? And the ones that do have those norms that are widely adopted. And then the last quote I'm going to get into in the video, again, not as sort of necessarily pro-social as what I'm going to do in the Substack, but this is found in the nature of things, that one never tries to avoid one difficulty without running into another, but prudence consists in being able to know the nature of the difficulties and taking the least harmful as good. A prince must also show himself a lover of merit and honor those who excel in every art. Again, we're getting into democracy here. This is feudalist times, but he's getting into sort of democratic principles. He's talking about basically often you'll face problems and there's no good solution, so you got to pick the best bad solution. And then he's talking about focusing on what people can accomplish themselves as opposed to just merely the power political games. Now, power political games are still going to be important, and he does get into that. But he's talking about a meritocracy idea, which is sort of developed from democratic values. And this idea that he's an aggressive person. And I'll get into some of the aggressive talks in the Substack, but this is not what I've got from this book. What I've got from this book is an amoral view of feudalistic power. And power has evolved. There's no denying that. But this book is not saying it's not like a fully amoral book. There's norms in it, and I just think that the idea that Machiavelli is this sociopath that has no empathy is grossly mistaken. But he does still fit into the new aggression model, just because how the state was formed in his era. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Do you think Machiavelli was the ultra sociopathic person that people think he was? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.